and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a Q&A about all things med school, so stay tuned if you want to know more. Alright, so I have a few questions from people that sent me things they wanted to know, whether about applying to med school or who are about to start med school and they were just curious about a few things. So this video is just going to be a Q&A. I'm going to read their questions and answer them to the best of my ability. So here we go. Alright, the first question is, what was the transition into a U.S. medical school like from an underranked undergrad institution? So, and I think by what they mean, I think by underranked institution, they mean like a school that is not a big name like Harvard and all of these schools. I went to the College of Staten Island, which is a city school in New York, and I was definitely scared about not being on the same level competitively with other people who came from these bigger name schools. I felt like they probably were more prepared or they knew more, whatever the case was. I just felt intimidated by that. And honestly, once you get to med school, besides the awkward icebreaker introductions where it's like, what's your name? Where are you from? And what school did you go to? No one cares about what school you went to at all. And as long as you are studying and doing what you need to do, it's fine. Like, they're not basing your grades or anything based on the school that you went to. They are teaching you what you need to know at that time. You're gonna be mingled with people from a bunch of different schools, and it just is what it is. Like, it's cool to get their experiences, and they are also interested in experiences that you had at your school. So don't be intimidated by it, even though it seems really scary. I know I was. All right, the next question is, what was my transition like into med school as a non-STEM major? Or what is a transition like for a non-STEM major? So I was a STEM major. So STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. So I was a biology major. But this answer is going to be from the experience of people who I've talked to who were not STEM majors, so maybe art, music, or just other unconventional, as you would say, majors that people don't usually go for med school. Any major you choose is fine. You can get into med school with any major as long as you're taking those required courses that you need to. But from what I've heard, some people did definitely have a little bit of a tougher time adjusting because, like I said, my first 6 weeks was my 4 years of biology, like basically my degree. So I already had that background, and because of my major, I had taken upper bio courses. So I did have more of a background. So it was, now I wouldn't say easier for me, but it was familiar to me. Whereas some people had to, go back and maybe watch some Khan Academy or watch some YouTube videos just to get more familiar with the area. But all in all, they still made it to med school and they still did well. Like, they're still passing. They may just have to do a little bit of extra work in the beginning because you want to build that foundation. All right, next question is, what made you stand out when you were applying to med school? So my grades were not spectacular. Like, they were good, but they were not like to be framed in a gold plated plaque and put on the wall. Like, they were great, they were good, but they could have definitely been better. My MCAT score was not the most amazing either, but I still made it to med school. So I think what made me stand out was the experiences I had and how I portrayed them in my application. So I was not a scribe, I was not a medical assistant, I wasn't an EMT, I didn't work in the lab, I didn't do any of that kind of stuff. I did volunteer for a few years in the hospital, but most of that was clerical work. I did a lot of outside things, so I worked with 7th graders and educating them about college and just showing them avenues that they can get to college. And I was also an RA at my school. So I think being able to portray those things and talk about transferable skills. So saying, I did this job, but these are the skills that I learned that I know how to apply to being a physician or apply to being whatever it is that you want to be. That applies to all professional school as well. So being able to apply those skills, I think made me stand out. I knew some of the qualities that the schools I was applying for, what they were looking for. So for example, leadership, for adaptability, flexibility. So I knew how to take the experiences that I had and portray those in that light. I knew how to emphasize the qualities and characteristics that they wanted in an applicant from what I did. I hope that makes sense. All right, on to the next question. How does the workload and time management differ from medical school to undergrad? So it's different because in undergrad, you're used to like, here's a syllabus, here's the assignments that we need to have done and turned in, and this is your grade, and maybe you have some tests. And I know definitely for STEM majors, we're used to having tests, and for non-STEM majors, you're used to having like projects or assignments. In medical school, it is more, how do you say this? It is more just like, here's what you need to know, and here's this exam coming up that's gonna test it. There are a few like assignments here and there, but it's not like homework. It's more just studying. Like you have, for each lecture that you get, they give you the objectives or the goals that they want you to get from that lecture, and it's up to you really to study it as best as you can. Not necessarily just from that lecture, however you feel fit to get that information, whether it's YouTube, going through books, doing questions, flashcards. As long as you get those objectives or those goals from what they want you to get, you're good. The workload, let me answer that workload part of the question. It is definitely more because you're getting a lot more information in a lot less time, but it is really all about time management. So being able to plan your days to be productive. And I'm not super productive all the time. I procrastinate a lot, but just being able to say, okay, I need to get this done by this date. How can I manage that while still being able to have a life? And that leads me to the next question. How can you make sure to stay sane and balanced, like still working out and going out? How I did that is that I don't study on the weekends. I still don't do that. And you can still work out. You just have to plan that stuff. You just have to plan a lot more than maybe you used to do in undergrad. Like the spontaneity is not there as much. It is still possible, but not as much. So you can carve that time out for yourself throughout the day. I know a lot of people who I talk to, they will use those things as study breaks. So for example, with working out or watching a show, it's like, okay, I did 2 hours of studying just now. I'm going to take a 10-minute walk, or I'm going to go to the gym for 2 hours, and that'll be my reward, or that'll be my break for the day. And then I'm going to go back to studying. Then I'm going to do something else. I personally use, my shows as blocks. I'm like, okay, from this time to this time I'm going to study, take a Netflix block, this time to this time I'm going to study, and then I'll use Netflix as my reward at the end. And a lot of people go out on weekends. If they still go to parties, they still go hang out with their friends, they still go to brunch, and we use like spring break, holiday breaks to have that social life. And also, a lot of people use study groups, not necessarily just bouncing ideas off each other, but just being in the presence of other people. You get studying done, and you also get jokes done as well. So that is one way that we stay sane. All right, next question is the next question has to do with finances, with regard to how to spend your financial aid refund check, how to budget appropriately, and how to decide how much to take out in loans. So although this doesn't necessarily apply to me, y'all thought y'all was done with FAFSA in med school. No, you're not. You still have to fill out FAFSA, and you still are eligible for financial aid. But most times people take out loans, or if you don't have a scholarship, you're going to be taking out loans. With regards to, let me just read the question again so I don't forget. Okay, how to spend your financial aid refund check. So, as tempting as it is to maybe spend it all on something that you like, I would suggest you either putting that into savings or saving that towards an upcoming expense, such as paying for maybe some fees or paying for a resource in medical school that you find helpful. So, for example, like if you want to use a Kaplan resource, a Princeton review resource, there's a ton of resources out there. So if you want to use a resource that you have to pay for and you get that refund check, consider putting some of that money into that. You can consider using that money for paying your fees for the upcoming semester, or if you want to use it for a vacation to go see your family or something like that, you can do that, but I wouldn't say use all of it for that. Try to put it towards things that you're going to need that you don't necessarily want to spend other money on. And then when it comes to how much to take out in loans, I always say don't take out more than you need, because you will find a way to spend it. You will absolutely find a way to spend it. So if you only need $250,000, take that out. And when I say don't take out more than you need, I don't mean just tuition, because you have other expenses clearly. You're going to have your rent, you're going to have food, you're going to still want to go out with your friends to go do things. So I think you need to sit down and really kind of guesstimate how much you think you're going to need based on like monthly type situation, and check out my video on budgets, how to make your money work for you, to figure out how I kind of budget even in school. But once you make that budget, multiply that by the year and then use that number to take out the amount of loans that you want. If you take out more than you need, you will spend it, and then you will have to pay it back. And it's going to just take you that much longer to pay it back. All right, next question. Do I find myself studying the same way that I did in undergrad, or did it change? I would say it definitely changed, and I kind of touched on this a little bit in one of the videos that I did. I used to be a person where if I heard it, I saw it once or twice, I was good. Like I didn't need to review it anymore. But now I find myself doing flashcards to kind of get that stuck into my mind, because I actually need to know this information at a later date, as opposed to college where it was like, got it, dump it after the test. So now I find myself doing more flashcards, doing more repetitive learning, and more in-depth review. And I don't take as much notes as I did in undergrad. I just don't find it as useful than doing flashcards, which is new for me. Before, I used to have the whole color gel pens, like binder divider situation. Like I don't do that anymore. I think that a lot of the ways that I would have studied in college was way too time consuming, and if I want to not study on weekends, which I don't want to, I had to find a way on how to study smarter and not harder, the most effective way to study. In addition to that, I know a lot of people who I spoke to, like in my school, they were used to making flashcards for everything. Like in undergrad, that's how they learned. They made flashcards, and once they made their flashcards, they were good to go. Whereas in med school, a lot of the feedback that I've heard is that making flashcards for the information that you need is way too much. Like it could be done, but it's just a lot of time and a lot of energy. So I know a lot of people who have now reluctantly switched over to kind of going through the pre-made flashcards, and then if there are things they need to add on, they'll add them on themselves. All right, so we just have a few more questions. And one of them is, next question is, did I study or did I review anything before I started med school? Nope, I did not. I was like, I don't know what med school is going to be like. I felt like I was going to be a dungeon dragon lady who had no time to do anything. So I was like, I'm going to enjoy my best life before med school starts. So I personally planned a vacation. I did everything. I was here for all the links, all the times, all the good times, because I didn't think I was going to have any of that in med school. So I did not study or review. However, I do know people who did. I don't know how much it necessarily helped them, but I could find out for you. But I personally did not. And the last thing is, if you can go back and do anything different before you started medical school or prioritize anything, what would you do? So for me, I'm pretty happy that I chose to go on a vacation with my friends, with some of my friends, before started medical school. But some things I guess I would say to prioritize or do is, one, if you can, spend time with family if that is something that you want to do, especially if you're going to be moving to another state or a location where they're not out there. You're going to be studying a lot, so having that interaction before you head off would be a really good idea. Of course, I'm always an advocate for going someplace and experiencing something just so that you have those pictures to look back on when you're crying. I'm kidding. Not really. I would also prioritize like getting your money in order. So getting your budget together, getting your finances together. So you're already stressing about learning about how the heart works. So you do not want to be worrying about money as well. That could be a really big stressor as well. So also getting like things together, like housing, food. Like if you're not a big cooker, like figuring out how you're gonna get fed and things of that nature, like little things that you don't think about until you're already in the situation. But those are the biggest things that I would prioritize. Just spending time with the people that you want to be with, or doing things that you really enjoy doing. Not that you won't have time to do in med school, but your time will be a lot more limited. All right, guys, so I hope that this was informative. I hope they answered those questions. If you have any more questions, please do drop them in the description box, and continue to share with your friends. Like, subscribe, and share, and turn on that notification so that you see the videos that I drop every Sunday. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed your daily dose of melanin. Bye.